Hey everyone, and welcome to the GRC room. Today's topic is, are we in a cyber identity crisis? We have 450 RSVPs for today's event, so it's clearly a lot of interest on this topic. I'm Mike Andrews. My company is Yastis Cybersecurity Consulting here in Las Vegas. I'm joined once again by Karina Klever of Klever Compliance, and we're happy to welcome guest Garret Grajek, who's the CEO of YouAttest, and he has so many identity and access related accomplishments to speak of, including founding, operating, and exiting SecureAuth. He also holds 15 identity and access related patents. So I can't think of any other guest that would be better to join us today. Also, he introduced Karina and I, which we're grateful for since we've been doing all these events together. And thanks for that, Garret. Without further ado, let me pass it over to Karina for a brief introduction along with some questions for Garret.
Thank you. I am Karina Klever, founder of Klever Compliance. We are the people who coined compliance management as a service and try to make sure that GRC is not overwhelming to folks. Also, I'm actually going to see Garret later today as well. If you happen to be in the Los Angeles area this evening, please come to the ISSA Los Angeles chapter. Beautiful downtown LA at the Accenture offices. So contact us if you need information on that. So Garret, welcome. Very, very happy to have you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work at YouAttest?
Yeah, thanks. And yes, I guess we do have over 450. Thanks, 10 followers. I know the other 440 are for Karina, but it's all good, 10 followers. I greatly appreciate it. Garret Grajek, identity guy. It's really what I know, and I don't know a lot of other stuff. Karina, you watch. When I stand at the buffet thing at the ISSA, I just stare at food because I don't know what it is. So I'm an identity guy. That's what I did. I worked for the big guys. I did the IBM, RSA, Cisco stuff. Grateful them, grateful for the knowledge, grateful for the exposure. Then I founded the first two-factor IDP, and that was a product called SecureAuth, okay? And that preceded Okta and Azure AD and all that type of stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, Azure ID, right? Then what I saw was that, and we will talk about this today, okay? I talked about what really didn't make any sense is that we weren't collecting and identifying identity risk at the device level. And I had an opportunity to create 9 identity models over at Cylance and created the first identity-based UEBA on the device, and did a lot of work with other IAMs there. Okay, from there, founded YouAttest. YouAttest solves a simple problem. Who has access to what? And we're going to get into that today. And I know when Karina is talking tonight at the downtown LA, we will probably hear her talk about that as well. It's a problem, people. We don't know what we have access to. And there's a lot of money being spent. And I get on these calls with these huge companies, and it's not being solved. And that's what YouAttest does. It solves in a rapid, least expensive way the principle of least privilege. That's me. That's YouAttest. Let's go.
All right. So then tell us about the evolution of kind of this cyber identity crisis, right? So IAM is a competency potentially, and some of our authentication fails. Can you talk us kind of through some of what we're seeing out there?
Oh, I think in the point zero, put a couple zeros there. I'm kind of responsible, and so is everyone else who worked in the early days of IAMs and SSO. That's the problem of IAM. We're good. We're really good. We're really good getting applications and giving access out. We are. And I don't care what everyone says. Oh, no, everyone identity sucks. No, this one thing when I always say is like, I'll talk to some marketing guy who goes, okay, well, I don't know if we can make it that complex. I'm like, we're talking to the smartest people in the world, marketing guy. You know what I mean? People working in identity, people working in cyber are damn smart. And we got really good at pushing out identities. And I do say the number one reason is just the wonderful proliferation and utilization of IAMs. IAMs are the best thing in the world. They just are, okay? Everything else before IAMs was a mess. And I worked on the first quasi-IAM, which was a company called Integrity. which figured out how to use an LDAP and turn it into an SSO product. Okay, and it revolutionized the world. Really did. It was a fantastic product. I installed it at Ingram Micro, E-Trade, all these companies, and just in rapid succession. So what happened is we got really good at pushing out applications through SSO and all that. And the best analogy I heard of where we are in identity is I was listening to, some car stuff, which is another topic I don't really understand. So anyways, but the truth is, after World War II, we had these amazing engines in American cars. Really great. My brother was a car guy. He's from the Midwest. So we had these huge 454 rockets and these, Olds 98s types cars. And we're driving along on drum brakes. So that's where we're at with identity. We've got really good, powerful engines. And it's the IAM, the ability to provision, the ability to get all these identities out. And what we have is GRC. Okay, I just lost. I'm not kidding. 90% of the audience. Come on, Garret. I want to hear about shared signals. I want to hear about identity trust scores. I want to hear about AI. I don't want to hear about GRC. Come on. No, I'm not kidding. That's the problem, y'all. Right? GRC. Oh, God, I let the college guys with the spreadsheets do that stuff. That's the number one problem. And I do believe it's not only a system problem, it's actually a semantic problem. It's a syntactical problem. We don't take the intelligence and the work done by people who are paying good amounts of money. Karina, you know the budgets in GRC, right? We're paying good money, and all that work goes to a spreadsheet and gets put in some file that might as well be in that Indiana Jones movie, right? They push it in there and it's kept very secure. That information is never fed back. Never fed back into the rest of the world. And hence YouAttest.
Yeah.
The concept was, let's turn GRC, make it doable, the same way wonderful companies like Integrity did SSO, the way SecureAuth did the two-factor IDP, the way Silence put AI in everyone's hands. That's the premise of YouAttest. And then actually quantify what we did in Identity GRC, turn it into a score, and then allow cyber to use it. We'll talk about that, but that's what YouAttest is.
So, my belief is GRC oversees all of operations, right? Like across the board. You're talking finance.
That's what our SACA says in the goofy certificates, right?
I mean, it's across the board, right? It literally is. So governance really, when used correctly, can help you immensely with streamlining your operations and maturing your operations and having departments talk to each other, because you can establish common measurement points across all of these operations. So one of the things that companies do have to actually adhere to from a GRC perspective, regulations and frameworks, and I know people have heard me say it 1,000,001 times, you've got a tool, great, align it up to your regulations and frameworks. And Garret, you did just that. And I want to talk about some of that alignment and kind of what the response is to how YouAttest is actually satisfying some of those regulatory and framework requirements.
Yeah, straight out. I mean, that's GRC, straight up, right? I mean, NIST 2.0. What is it? A little number that's, I think, tattooed on my chest, PR.AA.05. I won't show it. Don't worry, y'all. But that's, principle of least privilege. If you want to have fun, y'all, and I do this every day, use whatever LLM you want. I'm not going to advertise them. I like Grok because they don't never cut me off. So I love Grok. So, and it just gives me quick answers. Take any hack you see and say, hey, Grok, or ChatGPT, or whatever the hell you want, tell me how principle of least privilege applied to this hack. And it churns, and it's great. It's fantastic. And that goes straight to the frameworks. There is no framework, Karina, and I got all my charts, right? There is no framework. There is no guidance. I was done 2 calls this morning at 6 a.m. My brain wasn't working. The guy's like, airport security. I'm like, dude, just look up principal of least privilege. I guarantee it's there somewhere. We don't want, basically anyone just having access to it. That's what's in it. So yes, I've taken the time to map these YouAttest to the frameworks, but it wasn't one of the harder tasks I've done, because really you start with this CSF 2.0 or 1.1, whatever you're still reading, okay? And you'll see that, in PR AA05 says straight out that the enterprise, to be secure, has to ensure that the entitlements they have around sensitive data is quantified and practiced and enforced to the principle of least privilege. And I'm not kidding. If y'all are in front of your desk, look up your favorite hack. Look up SolarWinds. Look up New York Times. Look up any hack you like. Go back to TJ Maxx, okay? And put principle of least privilege and let your LLM search, and it's always there. It's always there. It's always some entitlement was over entitled. Something was, some things. And yes, now put up NHI, non-human identities are over entitled, etc. But every framework, everything from PCI DSS, everything from SOCs, everything from your SOC 2, all the way down if you're an energy to NERC SIP. They're all spelled out. They're all copy and pasting in this CSF that says, hey, access to least privilege is required.
And one thing I'm going to add to that is, let's get back to the basics on classifying our data, because not everyone needs to have the same level of access to all of the data types. And so not only are we talking logical access controls as with YouAttest, but this also is pervasive for your physical access controls and of course your APIs, your system to system access controls. There are far too many clients that set up an API years ago, haven't looked at it since. Yeah. They haven't actually looked at what it's transferring, what it's receiving, how it's processing it, which direction the data is going. I've actually had customers send data to through an API to a vendor that they severed the relationship with 3 years ago.
Yeah, where's it going? You think about it. One thing about identity, I love identity. It's all about abstraction. We did it right. The applications say you don't code the way we did many, many years ago. And I know your coding stories, Karina, and I come from that background too. You don't code what a right is. What you code is, okay, use this token, which is owned by this identity, or use this identity, or use this identity group. All we have to do, y'all, is make sure those identities or identity groups are giving us the right permissions. We don't have to go in and decompile our programs and stuff anymore. We haven't done that in 20 years, but we're not doing it. Or someone, and Karina, you live this life, some kid, and I'm not kidding, first year out of college, is running around with a spreadsheet, and someone said, oh, he did a good job. That's done. We got our SOC 2 type 2. I'll never have to look at that for a year.
Yeah, and that checkbox compliance mentality really is working against us in a very big way, because it's not all just check the box, right? So, yes, so lots to talk about. Mike, you've been quiet. Sorry, we've been rattling.
Oh, no, it's all good. As someone, I've seen all of Garrett's security control mappings, and I think that's really good for his company and for potential buyers, because someone considering his product doesn't have to guess which security controls his platform can satisfy. It's all right there. Just look at it, boom, and it's a lot of them. So,
and the other thing that we should mention is that a lot of the industry is consultants and MSPs. And y'all out there, you always have a dual challenge, and we acknowledge you have a dual challenge of not only doing the work, but you also have to justify your work, right? And that's what the mappings really come in. Hey, I'm not doing this because I'm bored. I'm not doing this to charge you more, right? There's a great framework out there. We all follow it. These are the controls that we utilize to meet those. So, Mike, I know you do that, professionally.
Yeah, yep. So we got a lot of topics to cover. We want to hear from both Karina and Garret on these, for maybe like a minute or two each. That should allow us to get through these. So identity and access issues are behind about 80% of data breaches, even the ones that are really more sophisticated, like maybe a software exploit, because they have to get in somehow, and it's through identity and access. So, Garret, let's hear from you. If you could just tell us, why is this such a problem after all these years? Why are identity-related issues behind so many breaches?
Yeah, I'm going to start out with something that we didn't even say in the prep that I really believe. I really, really believe this. Okay? Because identity guys traditionally have not been the CISOs. And I mean that straight out. The CISOs have come, and I've been in this industry as a pure identity guy my entire life. Well, entire life since leaving Lawson at 22 or whatever. Is I sit down and I understand, always try to do that as a traveler, always try to understand, who am I talking to? What's his background? You know, they always came from the network side. They always get very, very sharp. I mean, protocols, level 4, level 2, level 7, you know, okay, well, hey, I let my application guys deal with that. That's been a vulnerability. I was on a webinar, y'all, and I mean this straight out, where I'm on this world famous guy, okay? And I won't name him because I was just so whatever. And we're talking zero trust, and standard guy straight out says, well, identity is not that important as zero trust. And I'm looking at him going, what the F? I go, what are you enforcing? Are you enforcing some stupid level 2 packet? Or are you enforcing, you know, what identity has access to this resource right now? And should he have that access? Okay. That to me has been the traditional problem, what we inherited. I don't believe that's that. I think the new generation, and we should hire more people our new generation, because that's the technology we are using, right? The new generation starts with the Gmail concept. They know that, hey, if I got this Gmail address, I can access this. They start with that. Traditionally, we have people who have looked at identity as like, oh, okay, that's that goofy AD guy that I don't talk to. And I mean that. And that's a lot of legacy, and that goes back a long ride, but that's who's running the chieftains of these companies. So they have the wrong mindset. They just simply don't understand how much identity is. And then they start looking at this stuff. It's like, oh, I get it. All right. So I just bought Duo. I'm not putting them down. He has great minds over at Duo. I always listen to Shane's mail stuff. Duo Cisco. So I got my 2-factor stuff in there. You know what I mean? So I'm covered. It's like, no, you're not.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Take it away, Karina.
Yeah, I think 2 quick things I want to add to this. The first one is we are treating contractors, non-employee workers, vendors, right? Whoever is a non-employee. Because why is this important? Most companies have a process set up for that employee worker. When they get onboarded, what the steps are, where does the ticket go, what the level of privileges are according to their roles, right? Role-based access control is kind of where it starts. And you need to work with HR on that. It's not in a silo. IT executes and grants access based on instructions for that particular role, not person, not a duplicate of somebody that just got onboarded last week or somebody that's been in that department for a while. I've got stories about this, right? But literally role-based access control. Define the role and the title based on that least privilege permission principle. Now, right, so that's number one. Employees have that onboarding and offboarding kind of mechanism. Non-employee workers do not. Many times they get hired by the hiring manager as a contractor. They bypass all of those triggers. The hiring manager creates a ticket, gives so-and-so access at this level of permissions. And a lot of times that hiring manager forgets to do the offboarding. I read SOC 2s all the time. A very, very, very common failure point, folks, in extremely high levels of percentages, is that the user access reviews are not done. They are not done on time. And there's a lot of people that have elevated privileges or privileges altogether, not even elevated, where nobody knows where those people are from or when they actually left the company. These are real stories. This is your number one reason why a lot of these breaches are occurring, due to not managing these identities and the access control to the data or to the systems. That's what I have to add to that.
No, I love it. That is straight out. I think every person that runs IAM should, like I have, work for a week, because they did that to me at a company before I became SE, and work the help desk. In fact, I think, Mike, I got up on a LinkedIn conversation, and because you really see how identities are abused, okay, at the low level, right? A lot of people get identities because someone screamed really loud at the poor help desk guy, okay? I need this guy to have access. Okay, so guess what? The processes, were not followed, right? Someone got an identity, and as Karina says, what's the process? Where I go, where's the brakes? Are we using drum brakes? What are the brakes that say, okay, privileges will get added, y'all. I mean, there's a little concept called privilege creep, pretty well documented, that the natural state of identity is to augment privilege. That's the natural state. So if we acknowledge that's the natural state of identity, what is our remediation? What are our controls on that? I mean, it's documented, sure. Someone's supposed to do a user access review. Okay, is that automated? Given that it's pretty damn easy to add someone, is it really hard to remove and to identify, quantify, and remove? Yeah. So that's what we have to increase our brakes.
Yeah, those are some great points, and I think sometimes other departments might think that things like the principle of least privilege, separation of duties are there just to please the cybersecurity team or some compliance requirement, but it's there to make everyone's job easier. So if you have someone new going into Section A, they get this access there. You don't want to be giving out access like you're ordering a burrito at Chipotle, customizing, putting all this little guacamole here and there. So that it solves a lot of problems. It's not just a compliance thing. It really makes everything simpler and more secure and more compliant. So on the topic of compliance, what would you say is the top compliance-related challenge when it comes to identity? Karina, if you want to tackle this one first.
So I think it's standardization, right? So the steps involved are HR gives you a list of roles. The roles are mapped to systems. The systems have a level of permissions. And now those titles are assigned to the people starting those jobs and those job functions, right? So if you start with a standardized block and start with and we're creating our own problems in this space because we continue to assign unique titles. We continue to not map to systems and data that require, according to the job functions, level of access. There are some people in the manufacturing space who don't even sign on to a computer at all, right? Why are we not, for them, going and just giving random access to all of the, all of the most important golden eggs of the company? Because in that scenario, it's obvious. It needs to be just as obvious, as clear as we have today in our environments, right? We need to have these least privilege permissions based on their roles. Standardize, do it first, do that. And now what that makes it easier to do is when one of those people need elevated privileges, now you have a paper trail ticket that says, I have my baseline privileges in place. That's my standard. That's according to my operational guidelines. But if I want elevated privileges, here's my approval. Every single regulation and framework in the world is going to say, show me the approval for elevated access.
Nice.
And you're forcing people to do that instead of putting them straight into that role. Now you have your audit trail. Now you can review that audit trail. And when you do your kind of determination of whether or not that level of access is appropriate for that person, you can actually track against that elevated privilege. One more thing to say is it's a fine balance based on your company size. You don't want to have too many. But there are also companies who have one admin who maintains all the passwords and they don't give up the passwords. So they control a lot of the access and have access to a lot of the logs. So please make sure that you're carefully kind of looking at access control from all of the directions. Garret, anything to add on that?
No, I really like what you said there, and I just quantify some stuff here. First of all, we only got so much time in the day, right? So let's start with our privilege accounts. I mean, the number I just saw was 75% of the hacks are someone getting to our privilege account. Doesn't mean they started with it. I mean, I guarantee you 50% of our audience here knows how to use Metasploit. So if you get one ID, you can bump it up to a higher level of privilege. Okay, that's the problem. So now I have an elevated privilege. All right, what do those accounts have access to? What do they have access to? And that's not trivial. That's the main thing to remember. Because when I'll see stuff that said, "Well, we're just sloppy," and it's like, does anyone realize how hard it is to be thorough? I mean, it is. It's hard to be thorough. You have to, put effort into being thorough. You have to, say, get up in the morning and say, all right, I have no process around reviewing my key entitlements. Okay. That means you have to go fight, right? You got to say, I need budget for this. I need to have this done some way, right? Either we get a service. YouAttest does this for a service now because people don't want to train. Fine. Get a service, right? Or I need a tool, and I need to train Bob to use this tool, right? Okay. But that's being thorough. That's identifying. That's what the frameworks are, right? Karina, the frameworks are just there to help us identify where our gaps. I was on a webinar the other day with a great company. It's just Allgress. What they do is help identify gaps. Great. Use those kind of tools. Use Karina. Use Mike. They'll help you identify your gaps. Okay? And then when you got those, then we say, okay, identity is a problem. How do I do this? But it starts at identifying the gaps and then addressing.
Yeah, from a compliance perspective, I think there's two things. One, when you're dealing with a framework, a lot of times you can tailor out the stuff that doesn't apply to your company. You're rarely going to be able to, can't really tailor this out because it's so core. But with that, it's also an easy spot for an auditor to target because all they have to say is, okay, well, let's see how well this is going. When's the last time you had an admin leave the company? Okay, 9 months ago. Well, let's see when his access was removed. Oh, 4 months ago. Okay, well, it seems like you're not following your process. So that's kind of like a real practical way I'm looking at it. Nice. But on this topic, the principle of least privilege, basically giving out the access people need to do their job only, seems really simple. Just give minimal access, but it's not. Garret, why do you think this is so hard?
I love it. And I like to reinforce ideas because our brains don't work good. We just say it once. It's because of privilege creep, y'all. It just is. Live the help desk, live working, IM. It just augments. I need this to do my job. This woman, Jane, needs this to get this access. It keeps growing. It keeps growing. Okay. And that's easy to identify. Okay. And Karina gave the word RBAC. What about service accounts? Come on, y'all. We know what really happens with service accounts. Okay. And as an implementer and as some of the practitioner, you go, okay, I got to get this damn thing to work. It just gets the most privilege. It's like, I'll give it the damn root account. It'll work. And everyone out there, don't tell me that shit doesn't happen. That happens every single day when we're trying to get our projects work. Okay, what is the process? What is the process? That's why people like Karina are so great. What is the process that after we deploy that you go back to those NHIs, to those system accounts, and say, okay, let's look at these. Okay,
I want to address really quickly the documentation. Somewhere along the way, a long time ago, I myself have had many conversations about this. There was a theory of don't write it down, and if you don't write it down, that means the auditors can't ding you for it. No, you guys, it's legit comical, but it was so prevalent. It was so prevalent in the industry.
I read with Peter Shavak and the SolarWinds stuff. That's what it was. It's basically checkbox it and don't document anything.
Don't document anything. Shh. because that way they can't pin us on anything, because that creates extra work for us. Because when we say we're going to do a review once a quarter of all of the people who have access to this system at what level of permissions, that means we actually got to do it. Man, I don't want to do that. Let's just not write anything down. But this philosophy actually is working against us drastically.
Sure.
Because now what happens is you have this loosey-goosey sort of, you can't create a ticket for it. Use the technology, for God's sakes. We have so many technologies, tools in our systems. We create these swivel chair environments for our technicians, ask them to work off of 10 different platforms that also each one of them sends them emails. So now we ask them to go, okay, we're going to now expect you to work off of 20 different entry points and prioritize appropriately, which is just asinine, but that's a separate topic, right? Now, why don't we use some of those tools that we have? Because, IT, all you got's a hammer. Everything looks like a nail. So you're just going to go around just slamming all of the nails everywhere. Create a workflow for some very specific timelines for those reviews. You have all of the ticketing systems out there. You probably have too many. You're probably confusing your end users, because you're like, well, for this situation, go to this help desk. And for this other situation, go to the second help desk. And for this third weird scenario, go over here. You only call that number for this weirdness over here. So we're giving all of these people so many tool rationalization. People, make it your 2025 term. You need help, call us. Tool rationalization. We're killing ourselves. We're creating burnout, and we're literally enforcing this cybersecurity shortage because we're locking staff into the particular sets of tools that we have, instead of incident management as a competency, access management as a competency, change management as a competency. Doesn't matter what tool you have. Learn the competency, and part of that competency is documentation. I'm off my soapbox. Thank you.
But first of all, Mike, I have to say, I love, Karina, your American help desk accent. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike.
Garret, since we call you, Garret, the principal of least privilege, like school principal, what do you have to add about this?
What I have to add is, remember, things are not easy. Okay? It really isn't. And no one's saying it's easy. If it wasn't easy, I mean, the modifications I put in YouAttest for a user access review are in the thousands. Okay? And it was all about workflow. It really was. I have AI on it. I got patented AI on it. And I'll talk a little about that. Okay? Wasn't the hard part. It really wasn't. It's pretty damn easy to write a model now, guys. Okay? It's not that challenging, you know? I'm teaching sixth graders. Okay? So what's really hard is doing what Karina does and doing what I did when I built YouAttest. Is what I said is, okay, and I literally do it. I can tell you the two people I used. One was a CISO and one was a auditor. And I said, all right, auditor, talk to the CISO about what your process is. CISO, tell me what you respond to the auditor. And then we wrote that workflow. And then we did, 1,000 more meetings like that with customers and prospects and all that. That's hard. The process is not trivial. To actually, like I said, it's really easy to add. It takes documentation to remove. Because you know what's happening as the IT guy, right? You remove someone's access, someone's going to be screaming at you, okay? And if you don't have a process, we can help you with the documentation. Why? We got all the why. I got all, I can throw ISO at you. I can throw GDPR. I can throw, SOX at you. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, why did you remove that privilege? Why I moved that privilege? Because I have a practice here. I have a practice that says, if you have access to these systems, start with your privilege access, 75% of your hacks go that. My process is, I review these accounts and I have people attest. I have people attest that they should have this. Okay, this user did not say to. You have a document, you have a process, you win the discussion. It's not an argument, it's a discussion. That's why that person doesn't have access. And that's what you need out there. And I mean it, you, being not just the world of just saying, hey, I'm an IT admin, but the MSP, the consultant, or whatever. You have to be able to say, this is my process. And that's how we implement the principle of least privilege, because it's hard to remove, it's easy to add.
Can I add one thing to that? It's kind of I don't mean to ever go down kind of the negative path. I'm a little on the paranoid side, and for DRBCP, do want to say that insider threat is incredibly prevalent. We can do some of those automated things like run the background check and do all of those things, but elevated permissions really is the shoe-in to a lot of the insider stealing of data, bad things that happen, right? So point one, make sure that it says in your vendor contract or employment agreement somewhere that you will not, as someone who receives money from this organization, contractor, employee, will ever do anything nefarious, put in the worms, put in the malware, the viruses. There is canned language for this, because unless you have a signature on that document, it's very, very difficult to actually pursue litigation if you go in that direction and something's discovered. The second thing is watch your logs. You guys, I mean, turn on the DOP, do something to basically say, you know, I kind of watch them once in a while. I love my guys. They're all great and they're all super smart and they keep our system running. And we love who has that elevated privilege. But after your basics, after reviewing the access and after reviewing the appropriateness, just look at them once in a while. They might be gone in 2 weeks or 30 days. Just check them. Just check them. I'm sure everything's fine, but it just never hurts to do that log review.
Great point about logs, Karina, because we may mess this stuff up to begin with, but with the average response time, detection time, to once we realize a threat actor's in the system being about 6 months, it shows you that the logs aren't really being reviewed enough, or that would be much shorter. So that gets us to the topic of all the identity-related incidents we've heard of. Karina and I actually did a webinar about this months back where we reviewed like 10 major incidents. Most of them were identity-related. So Garret, I think we have time for one incident. Which one stands out to you the most and why when it comes to identity?
I'm going to talk about the New York Times. What? Okay? Because it's extremely relevant to what we're talking about here. You know, come on. And no one can say, well, the New York Times, they didn't know what to do. I'm sure they had great people. I mean, they had great staff. I'm sure they had great processes and all that. Okay, what did the hackers do? The hackers attacked their GitHub. Okay? And then what they did is they identified overprivileged accounts, right? And they were able to grab tokens that allow them to traverse and steal, I mean, an ungodly amount. I mean, just like, you know, terabytes of data. Okay, I'm sorry, what was it, the number? But the point is, we have to, as we've been talking for the last 30 minutes, we have to not only identify the privileges on our human accounts, we have to identify the privileges on our NIH and HI, non-human accounts. So yeah, 270 gigabytes of files, 5,000 repositories, 3.6 million files. And no one here is picking on the New York Times. What I'm picking on is everyone should be aware of the processes, not only in their, Entra ID and in their HR systems, but also in their system accounts and the privilege tokens. And I believe that is a real 2025 example of, wow, we really have to start looking at what we're given access to.
Karina, what do you think about that one?
I think Garrett's absolutely right. I think that this is such a basic thing that we could all do a little bit of a better job at, and we are continuing to kind of fail to look at access controls appropriately. I have to call out vendor management here very quickly. Mm-hmm. And Kurt, I will get back. I think you put a really good comment in, so let's talk about that in 1 second. vendor management is the most egregious, sloppiest set of failed kind of assumptions that we have out there, which is where most of our failure points are happening and our breaches are happening. As an industry, we have to do better, regardless what role you're in, regardless what function you're in, whether you're in finance and procurement and vendor management and organization, you're an auditor, you're a technician. We have to all collectively do better. I ran numbers last night for ISSA LA's chapter meeting tonight in downtown LA. Folks, 93% of the population, over 320 million people, are involved in healthcare breaches. This is not okay. This is not something for us to be prideful of, that we're in technology or that we're in cybersecurity. This accountability belongs to all of us. So honestly, ask that vendor. There's the hole in the void that is created is between the contract, that SOC 2 that you receive that says subservice organizations are not included in the SOC 2. That terms of service, that privacy policy, there's a big fat black hole in the middle of this, and it's a void where nobody's accountable for the data that you're relinquishing to the vendor, and it turns into one of these, and press releases get issued very late at night on a weekend so that people aren't aware of the breaches and those breach notification letters that come at us all the time. It is not normal. This is not acceptable. And most of these happen because we are failing as an industry with access controls as a competency. So stop and look at not only your internal people, but all of those vendors that you're dealing with. Vendor management is just probably the biggest fail across the board, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing. Can I address Kurt's question really quickly? So Kurt said, can you address the challenges of verifying active staff, contractors, and consultants, reconciling names in payroll, and the credentials used to access systems and applications? I'm going to go back to standardized access based on that title. Sit down and have the exercise and order the pizza or the sushi or the salad or whatever you want to order donuts. Sit down, lock yourself in a room and say, let's do a map of our roles across our systems and the levels of access for each of those systems. When a new person comes in, we assign them to one of those titles. I don't care if they're an employee, if they're a non-employee worker, whoever they might be a temporary staff, they might be a physician, it doesn't matter who they are. We have their title identified. Standardize that, and then retrofit, put a date in the sand. So now you've got all new people as of a certain date being associated to the specified roles. Now put a line in the sand and say, as of this date, dear everybody else, we're starting a new project. Your access may be impacted. Here's where to call for help. Here's where you may see changes to what your levels of access is. Sometimes you shut people's access down and they don't scream. Say don't ever go there, right? Sometimes they do scream. Sometimes you actually end up seeing things in the logs that are incredibly interesting because you never knew the data was getting siphoned until you turned off that account, right? So just some things to consider.
And let me add on that, automate. And I'm sorry, I didn't see the comments. So yeah, Karina's always on top of it. So automate. That's what YouAttest does. It literally takes your HR system, compares them to your identities. The problem is not the systems that are being synced. The problem is the systems that are not being synced. And what we've done in GRC is made it really hard to check the unsynced systems. We solved that year one in YouAttest. Can I show one slide, Mike, or so?
Yes.
Yeah. I really want to show this slide. And let's see, you have no slides. Your computer, come on, let's see if I can do this. What are all those hours of studying and all that kind of stuff? We are using, okay. Oh, wait, no, I'm just trying to show my screen. Share screen, look at that. Okay, what it is, I'm going to show you all, I hate doing this, right, is I'm going to show basically the CISA zero trust. slide. And why I love this slide is because, I don't know, I love CISA. I think they're doing a really good job. I did one better with these guys. Is they say, this is where we're at, guys, right? We got our HR systems. Maybe we got it synced to the IAM. We got 15, HIPAA healthcare. We got 15 healthcare things or financial applications that aren't connected. The initial state is automation. We got to automate. We got to automate the processes in reviewing these. Like I said, enforcing the principle of least privilege is way, way beyond manual. It's too hard. You need automation. That's what YouAttest is right there. Advanced is, and Karina, I like what you said, we got to throw some triggers in there. Okay? There's some triggers that say if something changes, I don't know, hypothetically, like if you're running a casino in where Mike lives, right? And your IAM is overtaken and people add a new IDP, hypothetically, there should be a trigger on that. Okay? YouAttest has identity triggers. Okay? Now, optimal is where I get on my soapbox, and I do like stuff that's come out of the companies like Okta and Cisco and our friends Microsoft and et cetera, is we have to start sharing. We have to share. Like I came up with that identity trust score, which I think should be consumed at enforcement points. That's what the optimal level of zero trust, according to CISA, but I think they did a nice job here, is when we start sharing knowledge that we have in one sector over to another. If you want to hear a really good and fun explanation of search signals, look up Mike Kaiser from SailPoint and his dolphin parable. He tells a great parable of how dolphins have trained the fishermen that they push fish into the shore, and then the fishermen put out the nets, and then the dolphins get free food. That's what shared signals are. Is I know something, and I want to pass it over to another body to do the enforcement. That's what we just need to be doing more. Take it away.
Speaking about that, how about we get into AI governance real quick?
Yeah. Go for it.
No, go ahead. I kind of wanted to, we're short on time. We've got a little over 10 minutes.
I thought we were going 4 hours today, Karina. It's all good. We could, and I'll say AI governance, first of all, it's needed. It is real. Guys, hallucinations aren't just something you did, on your Grateful Dead, concert tour. Okay? The hallucinations happen from bad data. And we have to govern the data, and we have to document who had access to the data, how we got the data, who had access to the algorithms. Now, offline and online, I've said I'm not all that thrilled with a lot of the stuff coming out of the big guys, the NIST, et cetera, because I don't think they're focused on what the real problems are. I think there's just way too much, verbiage as opposed to focusing on the threats. Take it away, Karina.
So on AI governance, what we've been seeing is AI needs to be treated like it's another vendor.
Nice.
And you need to control the access to it, and also kind of bring in the controlled data sets. You have to, again, know where your data is, where it's coming from, and operationally really how you're going to use it as far as AI goes. So we all want to use it. We all want to play with it. We all want it to help us with everything, like, the dishes and the laundry and things like that too. That would be great. But, we're going to take these operational functions that we have. You will not be able to use AI unless you have your process documented, including timing and exact parameters, because you can't tell AI to just go do something. You can tell AI to go do that exact thing at this specific parameter and then work around those controls. So the governance for AI data usage, I encourage everyone to think about ISO 42001. It's a little heavy, but based on ISO 9001 principles that have been working for decades at this point. And what does 9001 say, which actually establishes our good manufacturing practices, our good documentation practices? It says you have an input and it's defined, which means, let's say you have a recipe. If you're manufacturing drugs, you have your ingredients, at what quantity, timing of when it goes in the cauldron, the cauldron turns around at a certain temperature so many times for so long, and out comes these press pills that are serial numbered. And in this scenario, maybe you want AI to say, I want you to check bias to see if there are negative reactions to these meds based on ethnicity, based on gender, right? Based on location potentially. Or sometimes you don't want the bias. It really depends on your actual operation. So keep in mind with AI governance, very important to have that process defined, have the data defined, have the access defined, and use a guideline like 42001 that mimics 9001 that says, here's my incoming data set, here's what I want to do with it, and here's my intended output and what my usage for it will be. And access really is a play in all of these factors, as is really knowing your data.
Nice. Yeah.
What do you have to add, Garret?
Yeah, what I have to add is I like what you did. I mean, the ISO 4201 I think is a much more quantifiable document than in this AI RMF right now. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but I'll say it. The other one I liked was the OAuth AI LLM generative security framework, because it steps you through your process. And if anyone wants to see that, just ping me on LinkedIn. I created a chart on that. But it basically takes you to your process. It says, what do I need if I'm scoping out an AI project? What should I start documenting? As Karina says, just start documenting it. Start putting it out to your team. Hey, we're going to have these processes, and we have to have these, this RBAC set up. Let's document, and it takes you through it. Takes you through, what your process, what you're planning, to your development, to your staging, to your deployment, and that can really help people. And I handed it over to a couple of people already. Yes.
Yeah, I think right now AI governance is a little bit of the Wild West, because if we look the way compliance happens, it's not because companies just feel like doing it. It's because either a law, regulation, client, partner, contract dictate it, or else why would they do that? You can't do it all. You have to prioritize. So I do think it does pay to be proactive in this area, because like Garret alluded to earlier, it's hard to manage the system accounts. Like a lot of times when I'm doing audits with clients, they're saying, oh, I'm not really sure what that system account is. It's probably okay. That issue is gonna amplify even more once you have agents to account for, and you have to control their identity and access too, because an agent can spin up another agent, so it's not the same as a system account. So let's be proactive in this area. At minimum, if it's just like a paragraph you add to an existing policy, have something. It doesn't have to be a full framework for now, but great tips from Karina.
It's as Karina started this with. What is governance? Governance is not to meet compliance. Governance is to make sure that what the requirements are, we build the product in a safe and profitable way. And that's what governance is. So yeah, there's no official compliance measures on AI, right? But any AI project still has to meet the business requirements, right? Of one, being profitable for the enterprise and being productive for the enterprise, and not introducing risk. So that's where I think the frameworks are. They're all three of them are decent. Just choose the right one for your level.
Absolutely. Since we're getting to the end here, Karina, Garret, and I, we would love to connect with you if you're on the call, if we're not already. So I want to go ahead and just add to the stage our LinkedIn contact information. So if you feel like connecting with us, if not, no big deal. Just want to make it convenient for us. And look how we lined it up, right? Like it's
look at that. This is a pro.
It's brilliant. 2025 has brought all types of advances there. So we'll leave that up for a minute. But Karina, so identity isn't something we address one time. It's something that we need to look at week after week, year after year. What are some identity-related tasks companies should be doing each year?
Oh, that's a great one. So not even each year. Do this more frequently than a year, please. So first is make sure that the levels of access are applied to the roles, and those are kept updated and refreshed. Get that review the relevance of that access, because a lot of times people may have changed roles and maybe you didn't catch a promotion, a demotion. So you want to make sure that you're addressing new, you're addressing changes, and you're doing terminations. I also say there may be emergency situations, and you may want to come up with a code word inside your company that is very easily recognizable for people potentially in a combination of HR and finance and IT. The other thing is review the logs, include the non-employee workers. Actually hard disconnect or suspend or delete, probably a suspension is better, roles that are just user IDs that have no activity. Just shut them down, right? And then definitely look at just look at how the relevance of the access. I think that's the most important one.
Awesome. Garrett, what do you have to add on this one?
Yeah, what I would say is start with the gaps. That's what the frameworks are. That's where you use the Karinas and the Mikes to help you identify the gaps. Okay. Then don't stop there. You don't have to deploy software. You don't have to take on a whole system. Products like YouAttest right now, we're being offered by MSPs, and we offer the service ourselves. If you have the gap, let us help you. Okay. We will help you do these user access reviews some way, okay? And we'll help you identify the accounts that are overprivileged, not only the user accounts, but the non-human identities as well. And what I'm saying, it's quantifiable, and once we quantify it, right, then we can solve it. That's it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as someone that's used Garrett's platform, I think it's really good. Like the training is like an hour or two. And if you watch these webinars, Karina and I don't talk about products like hardly ever, but that this YouAttest is one that we really like. So as someone that works with clients often and has like different reviews set up, just be active in the logs, right? You want to set this stuff up, but monitor, because when you monitor it, you can find things that are happening day to day. Threats evolve. And you can also find if maybe you did something wrong. Just because something's configured wrong doesn't mean it has to just stay that way forever. And it's not too late. So just be active in the logs. But that's really about it. So Garrett, where can people find you? And do you have any closing remarks for the audience?
Yeah, find me right on LinkedIn or do a contact page on YouAttest. And what I would leave with is the answers are out there. I don't like negativity. I wouldn't start companies and keep working if I believe in the negativity. I believe that there are great people in our industry and great products in our industry. YouAttest one of them. And also the work being done in shared signals is going to make a difference. We're going to win, and we are winning. We are. There you go.
Awesome. Karina, where can the audience find you outside of LinkedIn, which we have displayed here? And what else? What closing remarks do you have?
Yeah, pretty simple, clevercompliance.com. Also, we do have an events page on clevercompliance.com where there are redirects to very many events for the last several years, and it's a very overwhelming list, but you can find just about anything on GRC on that list. Closing remarks this is one of the most important topics we really have to stop and get our arms around. Nobody's going to do it for us. Nobody's going to give you some software where you flip on a switch. You can, but you have to have the business decisions in place first, and you have to have your business processes in place first, and then absolutely overlay whatever automation and tool you want to on it. Take accountability for how you govern and control that access management competency as its own kind of world, instead of a afterthought that you think might be okay and it's going to fix itself and really not that important.
Oh, really good insight. So as we mentioned earlier, with identity and access being part of 80% of breaches, I think it pays to just hit this really hard, because if you can just pound this particular topic and make that 80% a minimal issue, then you can focus on that little baby 20% that's left, and you'll do so much better. Everything gets easier because it's like, how do you protect your house, right? You protect the perimeter. When you're going to let someone in, you either look at your camera or you look for your peephole or you say, who is it? And you identify them before you authorize to come in.
Mike, I like where you took that, because looking at the managed service providers, are they spending 80% of their time on identities, or are they spending 80% of their time on devices? So let's say that. Let's apply our resources, our brains, and our wonderful people on where the problems are. That's a good closing thought. Yes.
Exactly. Just shrink the pie. Hit this area hard. Everything becomes easier. But thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. Over 450 of you. That's kind of crazy for like a GRC topic on LinkedIn on a Wednesday. We really appreciate it. Karina and I will be having another LinkedIn Live event on July 16th with another awesome guest, and we hope you can join us. Garret, thanks so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with you. Garrett's one of the people where if he says he messages you and says, hey, can we have a quick call? You're actually like, okay, yes, let's do that. So it's awesome. Thanks so much. And everyone, I hope you have a great day.
Fun stuff, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.